Alexander Hayes stood by the towering window of his penthouse, gazing out at the sprawling Manhattan skyline painted in shades of silver by the gentle snowfall. The city was alive with movement and light, yet inside his vast apartment, a heavy silence clung to the air, an aching void that no amount of wealth or success could fill. His mind wandered to Emma, his precious 8-year-old daughter, whose fragile body was confined by the cruel chains of cerebral palsy. She had never spoken the clear, joyful words other children took for granted, never taken a step without assistance, and her laughter, so rare, was like a flicker of fragile light in an endless night. Since the loss of Helen, his beloved wife and Emma's mother, 2 years prior, Alexander's world had shrunk to this quiet battle between despair and hope. Each day, despite the army of therapists and caregivers he had summoned, he saw the distance in Emma's eyes, a silent plea for connection that none could reach. Yet beneath that aching sorrow lay a flicker of something stubborn, something refusing to be extinguished, a father's fierce hope that, somehow, love would find a way to bridge the silence and bring his little girl back to life. As snowflakes settled softly against the glass, Alexander's heart beat heavy but unyielding, waiting for the miracle that could transform their lonely world. When Maria first stepped into Alexander's penthouse, she was barely more than a shadow, a quiet presence among the polished surfaces and cold luxury. She carried no impressive credentials, no glowing references from prestigious agencies. Instead, she arrived with a humble heart and a warmth that seemed to seep effortlessly into the sterile air. Alexander barely noticed her at first, assuming she was like the others, efficient, invisible, and distant. But Emma saw her differently. There was something about Maria's gentle touch, the way she moved with a soft grace that reminded Emma of a dance, something the little girl had long forgotten. One afternoon, as the sky turned a muted gray and snowflakes drifted lazily outside, Alexander returned home earlier than expected. The penthouse was unusually still, but not empty. Drawn by a faint melody and the soft sound of laughter, a sound he hadn't heard in years, he found himself moving toward the sunroom. There, bathed in the golden light filtering through the frosted windows, Maria was holding Emma's tiny hands, guiding her in a slow, tender dance. Emma's eyes sparkled, her lips parted in a fragile smile that bloomed into laughter, a sound like the gentle chime of bells breaking through the long silence. Alexander stood frozen, breath caught in his throat, overwhelmed by a wave of emotions so raw and sudden it threatened to shatter him. In that moment, the cold walls of his grief cracked, letting in a fragile, shimmering hope. It was not just a dance. It was a miracle, a quiet, tender rebirth of joy that Maria had brought into their lives without a word, simply through the language of movement and love. That evening, Alexander called Maria into his study. His voice trembled as he spoke, "I saw you with Emma." Maria's nervous smile softened into a glow of quiet pride as she whispered, "There's music in her heart. I just helped her find it." Tears spilled down Alexander's cheeks, tears he hadn't shed since Helen's funeral, and in that silent exchange, a new chapter began, one filled with hope, trust, and the possibility of healing. From that day forward, Maria became much more than a mere caretaker. She transformed into a radiant beacon of light in Emma's world, weaving music and movement into the fabric of their daily lives. Each morning, the penthouse was filled not only with the hum of city life beyond the windows but with the soft melodies Maria hummed as she worked, her voice gentle and full of warmth. She sang songs in both English and her native Spanish, telling stories through rhythm and dance that stirred something deep within Emma's heart. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Emma began to respond. Her eyes would light up at the sound of Maria's voice, her fingers twitching to the beat, her tiny feet attempting tentative taps with support. Alexander watched in awe as his daughter, who had seemed locked away in silence and stillness, started to speak simple sounds, mimic movements, and even take small steps with Maria's steady hands guiding her. The house, once heavy with quiet despair, now pulsed with laughter and hope, each day a fragile triumph. Alexander, who had spent so long trapped in his own grief, found himself loosening his tie, joining the dance in hesitant but genuine moments of joy. He learned more about Maria's past, the dreams she had sacrificed, once training as a ballet dancer in Puerto Rico, the sacrifices made to support her family, the strength beneath her quiet demeanor. Her courage and resilience fueled his own, weaving a bond between them that went beyond employer and employee. It was a connection born of shared hope, of small miracles in the face of overwhelming odds. Through music and dance, they were unlocking Emma's world together, step by step, note by note, proving that sometimes, healing begins not in grand gestures, but in the simple language of the heart. Inspired by the transformative power Maria had brought into Emma's life, Alexander's vision grew beyond the walls of his penthouse. He realized that their fragile, beautiful journey could become a beacon of hope for countless other children whose voices and steps were silenced by disabilities. With unwavering determination, he approached Maria with a bold idea, a center dedicated to healing through music, movement, and human connection, a place where children like Emma could find their own miracles. Maria, overwhelmed yet deeply moved, hesitated at first, doubting her ability to lead such an endeavor. But Alexander's faith in her was steadfast, reminding her that reaching a child's heart was the most vital gift of all, and everything else could be learned. Together, they poured their hearts into creating the Lily Center, a sanctuary where therapy intertwined seamlessly with dance, art, and joyful expression. The opening day was filled with tears and laughter, a celebration of resilience and new beginnings. Word of the center's success spread quickly as children who had been told they'd never walk took tentative steps, and those who had never spoken found their voices amid the melodies and movements. Donations poured in, and families from far and wide sought refuge and hope within its walls. Maria's creative spirit flourished as she designed programs that blended discipline with delight, giving each child a chance to shine in their unique way. Alexander watched, his heart swelling with pride and humility, as the center blossomed into more than he had ever dared to dream, a community bound by love, courage, and the unyielding belief in possibility. In those vibrant halls, hope was no longer a fragile spark but a blazing flame, lighting the path toward a future where every child's potential could be realized and celebrated. Years after the Lily Center had become a beacon of hope and transformation, a quiet revelation unfolded that would forever change the lives of Alexander, Maria, and Emma. During a heartfelt celebration marking the center's anniversary, an elderly woman approached Alexander with trembling hands, clutching a worn envelope whose edges bore the weight of time and untold stories. Her voice, soft yet laden with emotion, carried the gravity of a secret long kept in the shadows. The envelope contained the last will of Maria's mother, a document that unveiled a hidden truth. Maria was not just a devoted caretaker or a creative director, but Alexander's half-sister, born from a secret relationship his late father had never revealed. The shock of this revelation rippled through Alexander's soul like an electric current, challenging everything he thought he knew about family and fate. The woman's words lingered in the air as Alexander's breath caught in a mixture of disbelief and awe. He sought out Maria immediately, the bond between them suddenly illuminated by a new, profound connection. When he embraced her, it was no longer the simple gesture of gratitude or friendship, it was the embrace of family reunited, of two lives intertwined by blood and love, previously hidden but now shining with undeniable clarity. Tears streamed down Maria's face, a mix of joy, relief, and the healing balm of belonging. And then, in a moment that seemed to transcend time itself, Emma, who had found her voice through the miracle of music and movement, spoke a word with powerful clarity: family. That single word, spoken with pure innocence and strength, echoed through the room like a declaration of hope, unity, and the miraculous power of love that binds souls beyond circumstance. In that instant, all the struggles, the heartbreaks, and the triumphs converged into a new beginning, where the true wealth was found not in fortune or fame, but in the unbreakable bonds of family, woven quietly through pain, healing, and the unyielding light of connection.